welcome. So good to see you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Rita Boccuzzi, and I'm a living benefits expert. And today I am so grateful. I have my dear friend, Portia, who I have got to get close to over the past few years. And so, Portia, I just want to say really thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I'm so grateful for you.
You
and
are welcome.
For our wonderful, blooming relationship as really close friends and kind of like mother-daughter. Being that I'm known as Mama Rita, right?
Yes. There's nowhere, sister,
Okay. Oh, I
young
like
auntie.
That. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. I've wanted to do this for a while.
Yeah.
So it's happening.
It's happening. Look at you manifested that. Ooh, right? Bringing great, amazing things into our lives, no matter how challenging our lives have been.
Yeah.
So, and I love that we laugh because you know what? The cool thing is that we get to see the joy in it all. And I think that's what I love most about you because we've had some pretty tough times.
Yeah.
And
they're still happening.
And they're still happening.
Yeah.
And you're still showing up. And I don't want to get teary-eyed, but I do because it's like you're so amazing and so inspiring that you get to show up no matter what. And because our message, what we go through is bigger to share with people because that's the profound love you have for people, that I have for people. And we get to make a difference by sharing our stories so that hopefully someday other people will see this and we will get to maybe change their lives.
Oh, absolutely.
For the better. Actually, yeah, you're right. Look at her. She's the absolutely girl.
Yeah. I mean, you talk a lot about the financial cancer that can happen when you get diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want that to happen to anyone. Well, I don't want people to have cancer at all. But, that's a separate issue. But, yeah, everything that the company offers, it makes that a reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's, first of all, besides just being beautiful, it's like a thing that you would never think would be possible.
Yeah.
Because you see all these stories of people getting cancer. Now they're on GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Or like the Facebook what is it called? Facebook,
oh my God! I'm just gonna say fundraisers.
Yes, fundraisers. That's what it is. They're on the Facebook fundraisers,
right?
And you're inundated with that, but you don't even know that there's something out there that can actually pay you if something like this happens.
Right. It's too good to be true.
That's what I mean.
That's what I get to hear. I mean, I've been hearing it's too good to be true for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And like you said, going back to how you said how you got to go through this in a very different way than I did, So for me, you're the epitome of the story that I said I will never allow another family to go through what I went through. Never would I wanted that for you to be that story. But if you were without it, I can't even imagine what that would have been like for you. I know for my family, like you said, the financial cancer, having cancer, and then thinking about my kids who are at that time 12 and 17, going into junior high, going into high school. And as their mom, I taught them everything, right? Good Italian mama, taught them how to feed themselves, take care of themselves.
You don't want no spoiled kids out here.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then to have to say, okay, now we're having to dig into our finances, our resources, eventually after, because who can live for a week, 2 months, 12 months,
3 years,
3 years without their same income, without a resource. And so when I went through that, I didn't want that to happen to anybody or their kids or anybody. And so that's why I started sharing the message. And I'm so thankful for the day. I can still see it and remember you walking into the restaurant.
Walking? You mean strutting into the restaurant? I said, I'm here.
You are.
The meeting did start. Oh, the meeting's already started. I'm late. Okay, let me get in my seat.
You guys were late.
Yes, we were late. Yeah.
But look you showed up. It doesn't even matter that you were late. You showed up. Just because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm too late. I'm not going to go. Or it's too late for me. you just get to show up. And the timing happened to be perfect for what?
Literally
without knowing.
Yes, because my story is kind of crazy. I mean, my story in general is kind of crazy. We got time? Okay. So
I always got time for
yes. So, well, first of all, when I met you, I was 27 still.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was 27 still, and I knew that I really cared about finances because my family, we were very poor. We grew up in Baltimore City. I don't know if you know anything about Baltimore City, but it is, it flirts around with being the murder capital, of the, yes. So, we're very proud of that. We try to outdo ourselves every year, but there's so much poverty. And you have all of these sayings that just perpetuate the poverty.
Yeah.
That the money's burning a hole in your pocket and you got to spend it. And not only what people say, but it's also what you see. The patterns of, like in my household, because my mom, single mom, 3 children living in Baltimore City, we barely saw her because she's working 3-4 jobs as a firefighter, as a paramedic, as security, like all kinds of stuff. But it's like what would happen in our household is that there will be a week where there was food. It was a feast. Yeah. And then there's the week where there's nothing. And you just have sugar. You don't even have tea. Who can't afford tea? Tea's like 10 cents. But so you would just get water and put sugar in there, and it was sugar water, and it was the best thing ever. And I mean, how disgusting. And it's like, how people joke about being poor, that they either have peanut butter or they have jelly. Well, we had neither. Yeah. We had honey. Yeah. Oh no, we didn't have honey. That's too expensive. We had sugar, or we had syrup.
Syrup, okay.
So we made syrup sandwiches. Disgusting.
Wow.
Best thing ever at the time. But this is what you're seeing. You see that there's some sort of fluctuation between you have money and then you don't. You have money and then you don't. And so you begin to believe that that's the pattern. Yeah. So that when you get money, you spend until there's no money. And then you struggle until there is money. And you think that there's something noble about it. And you think that there's something correct about this cycle. But as I'm seeing this and as I'm getting older and you get introduced to the internet, because I'm 31 right now. So it's like I was there when the internet was starting to become what it is, where you could really gain access to information. And I'm a reader too. I'm a little nerd. I know y'all see me out here looking cute, but I'm a nerd, and I was always in the books. Yeah. So I was introduced to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Tony Robbins is always talking about money, and you learn all of these things and you begin to be like, wait a second. I don't think this is right. And
something different here.
Sounds a little different.
Something they know.
Right. So I was beginning to have a different financial mindset.
Yeah.
And you go down the rabbit hole of all these other things of realizing that it's different. And then you fast forward for me on my journey, and I moved to California, and everything that I had learned so far about finances made the difference for me of not being one of those LA stories where you wind up with the biggest box on the side of the street. You know what I mean? So, because that's the LA story for a lot of people. And so by the time that I'm introduced to you, I'm hungry for the information. I'm like, I know that there's something that I'm missing here because I'm still experiencing the cycle, not to the extreme of like, I have no money, but I'm like, there's got to be a better way, because I know that you don't work yourself into wealth unless you are a business owner. Obviously.
One of the things I remember when you came or when we sat and spoke was you're like, my mama said for me to be good with my money, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And you were just taking the steps and the initiative to find out. And I thought it was so amazing. I'm going to say never in my wildest dreams having clients that are in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s, that a year later after you set everything up, because you and I, we play. I think we have a very playful relationship, a very loving relationship. And yes, I love being your sister.
Yes.
I never imagined that I would receive that text from you.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I need you, and it's serious. And I thought, she's not playing.
Yeah.
She's not playing. I remember I was out and I remember calling you. I'm like, I can't even drive to the next place I got to go. I got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And just reaching out to you. And then we got to, just start things in motion, right?
Yeah.
As far as, okay, what are we going to do next? What can we do? What's possible? This is what's going on. And then, be there for you as much as, being a cancer survivor myself. And then help you through some of the other personal pieces that we go through, right? And I'm just going to bring the elephant in the room, like the hair loss.
Yeah. What?
What
That shows this, though. Yeah.
Things that we go through that it's not just the money, but the money piece just helps create calm and ease and choices and options in that area while we're going through all these other personal things that we're feeling, the not feeling so great.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know what you mean. As I'm like half dead a little bit.
I know.
Yeah.
Showing up even when you're not feeling that strong, but you have a purpose and you have a passion to share. And then, do you remember when we got on the phone call to call the company?
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember about that? I'll share what I remember. You share what you remember. I'm just curious.
Oh,
Do you remember being on the call?
Of course.
Do you remember that they kind of surprised you?
No.
No?
Yeah, no. Yeah, of course. That was kind of a fun call. I don't know why. For some reason, I felt like I was a part of Ocean's 11 or something. Because it was a three-way, and why we were even on the call is because I had received a letter that was talking about, first of all, to flip it and rewind it, is that I bought 2 policies from you.
Right. Yep.
We bought one that would be like a backup for if I got sick.
Right.
And then we had the other to be
to grow your perpetual
retirement.
long-term wealth.
Exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I got a letter around the same time that I got diagnosed with cancer talking about a third policy. And I was like, what? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we got to get on the phone with this person. And so I'm really confused, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this third
let's
policy.
just call.
I know, right? But when we were on the phone, I almost felt like you were like, shut up.
I was, because you're like, what are we doing? What is this? I'm like, wait.
This? And I was like, ooh.
I was like, shh, let them explain.
Okay. And then what happened was, it turns out that my mom, who was the one who told me about life insurance in the first place,
right,
in 2014, she got life insurance for all of her kids.
Beautiful.
And that's why when you started talking about life insurance, I was like, I know about this. And I know that it's a good thing to do.
Right.
And so, but what I didn't know is that she had life insurance with the same company.
Right? I mean,
It's this, and I'm like,
what was that?
Oh
What?
my goodness. So now I have 3 life insurance policies.
Right.
So we took from that life insurance policy and the one that we had set aside
And you're
for
still
the
living.
medical. And I'm still alive.
Wow.
You are correct.
How's that possible?
But what was so amazing about that is that I got to keep the one that I wanted for the long term, because I'm going to be here.
For the long term.
How about that? So I got to keep that one intact, and I was able to use those. And I got cancer, or diagnosed with cancer, because I already knew. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with cancer in November of 2019.
Yeah.
What was starting to happen around that time? I don't know. Some corona, COVID, something like that.
And it wasn't about drinking.
It had nothing to do. Yeah, I think it was Corona with Lime was getting really big at that time.
Right?
Yeah. No, so I started all of my treatment in at the end of January.
Yeah.
So I'm full blown into treatment
Yep.
in lockdown.
Yep.
So I was an actress, I was a model, I was a brand ambassador. All of that stuff shut down.
Yeah.
So the way that I was making money is no longer the way that I was making money. And also I couldn't really go anyway because I was on chemo and it was so hard.
Yeah,
on
that
me.
is so hard.
It was, and I found out, Rita, I have a blood disorder that is contributing to why
Wow.
the chemo was so hard on me. So I'm just
Well,
no. I just
God,
found out. I just found this. Y'all getting the breaking news.
Wow.
I just found out. So, you know, the chemo was really. I couldn't work even if I wanted to work because I was just out in my bed, unable to do anything.
Yeah, you can't.
Right.
It's debilitating. I mean, I remember, you know, having 2 young kids at home, and yes, I had my husband, but for us, the loss was he had a sales job. So when I was primary breadwinner at the time, so my income goes down. Where do you think his income was? He was driving me to chemo and radiation, and so if he's not working, he's not making any money,
Right.
especially in sales.
Yeah.
So these challenges, they're real. And, you know, doing what I do today, knowing like the realities of the stats and the numbers, I think it's so important for people to know, because we're at over 60% of people like going into bankruptcies due to medical related costs.
Yeah.
Right. And the not covered costs of things that health insurance, because, you know, health insurance, they are paying you and me. They're paying the doctors and the hospitals. That's what it's there for, you know. And then as I've been progressing, I've been learning about people losing their homes. Like over 50% of home losses are due to medical related issues. And then I'm a businesswoman, so I'm always talking to business people and their families. And I found out 48% of business loss is due to medical related shit. I'm like thinking, this is a freaking epidemic and no one's talking about it. This is crazy. But you and I are talking about it.
Yeah.
And we're sharing it with you.
Yeah. And I mean, I was especially blessed because who could have ever predicted like a global pandemic? And
On top of this other
other pandemic
that no one's talking
so we
about.
had a double pandemic,
Right.
But I was blessed because I got my money right when that happened.
I know.
Which was just amazing. So
I remember
didn't
you
have
texting
to worry
me.
about that.
I remember you texting me something about, I'm putting money aside for Uncle Sam. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh, oh yes.
Yeah, you're not.
I do.
You know, we love the country we live in. But that uncle, you know what I actually learned just recently? Hey, talk about breaking news. At least for me. I was talking to my tax person, my tax strategist planner, and she was telling us that we are overpaying. Americans are overpaying by the billions
Yeah.
to Uncle Sam. And so you were almost going to think that you were going to have to do that too.
I know.
You were part of that
Well,
crew.
see, because, you know, I don't ever want to be put in the situation where I have to owe taxes, especially.
Smart girl.
Thank
Your
you.
mama taught you right.
Right. Thank you, Mama.
Right? Thank you, mama.
Was that her? I don't think that was her. I think that was probably Tony Robbins. But but I don't ever want to be in that position at all, especially because, you know, I was an actress, I was a model. The way that you make your money is so unconventional.
Right.
It's not like you're getting the same thing every month or so. It's like you get one lump sum of money.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't take out the taxes.
Right.
So it's like you have to do it for yourself.
And if you don't do it for yourself,
Yeah, exactly. So I never wanted to be in that position. So I would always just set aside 30%, even if 30% is too much. You know, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
then you have more.
You know, yeah, exactly. I got a little extra because the year before that, I actually won a game show.
oh, I've done one of those too.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I
I
remember
won
you
too.
telling me that. I remember you telling me that. But I won like a huge chunk of money, so you know I set it aside. So when you know I'm getting my check from the company, I'm like, well, this is a huge sum of money, so I got to make sure that listen, who's scraping up, you know, all of that money? Not I. So I was like, y'all not gonna catch me. So I just, you know, I set aside 30% of what was given to me. And
It was like a year later, you were like, I'm preparing my taxes. I need to know. And I'm like,
exactly.
yeah, that's tax free money.
No, you know what actually happened?
What happened?
It's so crazy, right? Is that you hit me up randomly and was like, I just wanted to let you know that the money is tax free. And I said, what? What?
Yeah, you're like,
Well, because
what did you say? I'm going to cry right now.
yeah, I was
Don't
like,
lie
stop,
to me.
stop, don't lie to me, Rita. This ain't funny. Cut the cameras, okay? You know? But what was crazy about that is because I'm a little bit psychic, right? I'm a little
I can say that about you, yeah.
And I had been told that I was gonna move into this apartment that was like $2,400, and I said,
remember that.
who? But then you called me right after I had
see.
heard that message and told me that it was tax free. So I'm like, stop. I set aside $25,000.
You did.
We moving in. We moving out. What? Yeah. So that was what was like so crazy about it, because it's like the money just kept helping me in so many ways.
In so many ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too about it. You know, you kind of
timing has been amazing.
The timing has truly been amazing. And I'm a very spiritual person, you know. Like I said, I talk about being psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all might think I'm crazy. That's okay. That's okay, because the cash, you know, the paycheck, it cleared out of the way. It cleared out of the way, whether I'm crazy or not. Because remember, I told you this story too, is that once I won the game show, then I was like, you know that thing where people, they write out a blank check for a certain amount of money. Well, I had written a blank check for $10K. Then I got the $50K. So then I thought, oh, we multiplying? Okay. Well, guess what? I'm gonna write out a check for $100K.
Wow.
But I was like, okay, not just $100K. There was numbers that was coming to me. So I wrote them out. And the number was 117,483. So $117,483. And when I got the check from your company, it was $118,563. We were off
amazing.
by a few digits. But how amazing.
That's pretty dang close.
That's crazy.
That's like,
you know, I had to hit you up about that.
I do remember that.
But what was even more fascinating is that I dated it. I had dated the check.
Oh, wow.
So the
right, I
check
remember
was for November 14th of 2019. And I got diagnosed with cancer November 12th of 2019.
So do you remember when we met?
No, tell me.
I know you remember.
I could never forget, but I want you to tell a story.
Okay, I'll tell it. I remember it was a Money 101 that we had, where we get to do free educational workshops for people that'll show up. Can you believe people will show up to those kind of workshops? Because
Yes.
I know why, right? They think they're going to be sold and told. So is that what happened?
I could believe that people would think that for sure, because
Right, because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so we're really lucky that you were courageous enough with your friends, right?
Yes.
Danielle.
Yeah. I was invited
You were
by
invited
my
by Danielle.
best friend, because you invited her.
Yep.
She told me that it was a session where you could learn about money, and I said, when are we going? Because I know that there's a gap in my financial knowledge, and so if that gap could be filled in any way, I said, I'm coming along.
Yeah. And
So,
she knew
showed
you're
up.
always teaching her
Yes.
and helping. So, and it's so cool because where I met Danielle was at a networking event. So
fabulous.
it's like, you just never know who you're going to reach out and touch and, how it's going to affect somebody. So it's always important. But I do remember you coming, and I do remember 3 of you scampering in.
3?
I think there were 3 of you. It wasn't
No, just
you and
me,
Danny.
Danielle, yeah.
Oh, maybe somebody else came with you. I'm not with you at the same time as you. So you came in a little late, right?
A little. Yeah, we were like 30 minutes late.
But in time enough to hear the information, right?
Yes.
I think one of the most important things that you heard was about the living benefits.
Right, because
Right.
I had never heard of that before. I really had no expectation of what the Money 101 would be. And when I found out that it was about like life insurance primarily, I didn't know that there could be so many components to it. And so when...
You know what? I didn't either.
Right.
And I had been in the industry a long time before
Yeah.
I was able to teach it the way I get to teach it
Exactly.
now.
And what I found, really interesting was that, first of all, living benefits even existed.
Right.
And how it was described made it so clear to me
Right.
that it was something that I absolutely needed to get. So when you think of traditional life insurance, you think that you get paid after you die, which
Right.
is fabulous.
Right.
Forget my descendants. I want money now. And so that's where living benefits comes in, where it's like you get paid if you almost die,
Right.
which was the really funny way that it was described to me.
Yeah.
And almost death meaning we are kind of almost guaranteed to have certain life altering experiences happen to us, whether it's a car accident that makes it so we can't perform what 2 of the 5 functions.
Right. There's 2 of us in the room and it happened to 2 of us.
Right. And cancer or heart attack or stroke. And there are a few different triggers, I believe.
Yep, there's
like
several. There's about 16 of them. But those are like,
there you go.
I worked in the medical industry for 26 years. And I know that in your earning years, right, the 40 to 60 is when heart attack, cancer, and stroke are the most devastating times to receive those diagnoses for people. And, other things like when you're in an accident and you become paralyzed, you lose a limb, or people in coma, burns, things like that. Who knew, right? We're not realizing that we get to have all that coverage, and so that's just one part of it. That's like the critical illness part of it.
Yeah.
Then there's, the chronic part, right? So what if you are in an accident? Somebody has a sports injury, or young or old, it doesn't matter, right? Unfortunately, diseases and disasters of our bodies don't just pick old people. It just isn't that way. It happens to most of us, and it's most devastating in those working years. And so having something where if you can't do 2 of your 6 activities of daily living, and to be able to cover your essential expenses on a monthly basis, I mean, it's priceless. Rather than, I'm going to say, when I had cancer, month to month, not only am I worried about covering expenses that are not covered by my health insurance. That was my one big blow away. Like in my personal story, I needed injections to build up my blood, right? You know about that.
Yes.
And at the time, doctors telling me that I need these 3 injections or I'm going to die in 3 weeks. Okay, so what's there to talk about, right? Well, it's not covered. I said, you just told me I'm going to die from this if we don't give. That makes it medically necessary, right? That's from my medical background. Yeah, but it's under the drug formulary, so it's not covered.
Yeah,
so
and you didn't have the living benefits.
And I didn't have the living benefits. So that's why your story is the turnaround story. You're a young, healthy gal.
When I met you.
When we met, right? And then who knew a year, just like the difference that a year makes is unbelievable.
Right.
And the difference that these plan makes, they are unbelievable too, right?
Yeah.
Whichever, and the fact that it's all encompassed in one, like you said, you don't have to die to get the money. First of all, you don't get it. Your beneficiaries do.
Exactly.
It's not for you. But what about you, right? Like we do get to take care of, we hear that story about putting the oxygen mask on first, right? So if you have a chronic illness, a critical illness, or a terminal illness, right? In my work, I have seen that time and time again. And people being able to do things like clinical trials that would not otherwise be covered and then survive 20 years later, 30 years later, that's priceless. Be able to walk their kids down the aisle when they got diagnosed, their kids were just little toddlers. Oh, that's what moves me to do what I do every day and to share it every day. And I'm so thankful that you were in the room that day, you know, to be able to be here to share more of your story and the impact that it had on your life.
Right. Yeah, because that's what the living benefits makes possible for people. Just like you said, it makes it possible where you might not have had the money before, but now you have money and you can do some clinical trial, like you said, and that helps you survive. Or in my case, because I still have cancer, I have stage 4 breast cancer, and I was diagnosed right before the pandemic happened. So, Coronaville was all around us, and who could have ever imagined that? But because
a lot of people.
I received the living benefits, the payout, which is essentially in advance in the death benefit, correct? Because I was able to receive that, I ain't have to worry about nothing except for having cancer, of course.
Right. But, which is enough in and of itself.
Yes, exactly. And you know, like you said, when we were first introduced at the Money 101, I was a healthy girl. I was 27. But it felt very important and very urgent that I get policies as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling you, I was like, Rita, I'm ready.
Yeah.
There's,
And
I'm
you were going
ready.
for it
I'm
all.
like, yeah.
You were not just looking at the living benefits piece, but more that living benefits piece to protect you financially if something
Right.
happened, right? But then you also had enough vision to look to the future, to that wealth building of that retirement, and, you know, maybe creating a lifetime income that's tax free, which most people don't even believe is possible.
Yeah.
And yet we get to do it every day. And it makes it possible for that hope of the future for whatever your needs are going to be then. So you're taking care of now and in the future.
Yeah.
And I love that.
What were those policies?
So,
'Cause
well,
I don't
we
remember. I
call
just
them-
was like, yes.
Yes. Those are the tax-free index accounts is what we call them, so that you can structure your money so that you get to create that lifetime income that you want. You get to set your goals and then go for the future, so that this
Yeah.
way you don't have to worry. Because one of the other things that people worry about is outliving their money, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you got too much month for the
Yeah,
money.
that's the phrase, right? You got too much month. And so what about when we get to our golden years? Well, our golden years, you know what? Retirement is not an age, it's a number. I talk to people that are retired at 40 and 50. So it's how we get to shift our perspective on how we're looking at these things. And I'm going to say in my training, I've been in the financial industry since 2007. Before that, like I said, I was in the medical industry. And learning the culmination of those two, so wellness and of your health and financial wellness, so your financial health, they're combined,
Yeah.
right? Because money is in every aspect of our everyday lives. And it's not about money buying you happiness, but money giving you options and choices so that you can secure the now, create the sustainability of the future,
Yeah.
and enjoy your life at whatever age that is for you. We should be enjoying every moment of our life and not having to worry. So definitely we both had diagnoses of cancer, very different ones.
Yeah.
But the reality is it affects your financial life, right? And so for me, when I look back at this, is, you know, I've been in the financial services industry since 2007. And no one came and told me about this till 2010. And here I am, this soccer mom, 2 boys, you know, out there with them, totally healthy. And somebody actually in April of 2010 comes to me and says, "Hey, do you know about this living benefits plan?" And I'm like, "Never heard of it." So they share it with me, but they're not really teaching me. They're just telling me some bits and pieces. They're like, "I really don't know enough about it." So I'm the research mama. You know, I was the first one to get married to my friends. I was the first one to have kids. So I'm looking at this because before I'm going to put my name behind something and share it with anybody, I want to make sure it's going to be something that's good, right? So I didn't take very long. You know, it wasn't about procrastination or anything for me. It took some time to figure it out. But I did. I figured it out and I was like, okay. But I was half-time working for corporate world. And this is something that I think is really important for everybody to know, is that when we work for the corporate world, we get all these benefits and we think we got everything covered until we find out we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem is when you find out you don't, that's a point of too late. So knowing ahead of time, well, it's great that companies, are out there giving benefits and things, but you get to verify your own benefits. And for me, it's really about that personal autonomy with our finances and creating our own personal economy, right? Because only you will take care of you the best. No company, they're doing it for a group of employees. So they do their best intentions with what they can, but you got to do your best intentions for you. So for me, I thought I had the best because that's what we were taught and told, or told, really, not taught. Like, we got the best plans, we got the best of everything. However, I said, okay, I got to save a little bit of money and I'll implement it in January. This was around just when school was starting, September, October, and then all of a sudden I started to feel like this lump in my throat. Like, it was just weird when I swallowed.
Right.
And I was feeling super tired. Like I couldn't pick up a 5-pound bag of cat food. And
Wow.
I'd have to call my boys. And I started to find that I was calling them more and more to help me with stuff that I thought, the heck's wrong with me? You know, super healthy. I used to exercise daily. Try to exercise daily now.
You're
Kind
not
of out of
exercise
myself.
at all, so.
Right? So anyways, what ended up happening is I waited and I was going to implement it in January. We're talking 2 months, 8 weeks. And that was too late. Because unfortunately, when I went to the doctor, like you in the sense, the doctor was looking at me going, I don't know what this is, but I got to refer you to a specialist and you got to get in tomorrow morning. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking I'm going to need a tonsillectomy, right? Because we could see something on my tonsil. Only one tonsil, so that's actually an indicator. They usually go in pairs. Get to the specialist, and he's looking at me going, I don't know what this is, but my gut is telling me we need to do a biopsy, and we need to do it right now. So you always go with gut.
Yeah.
You always, especially when it comes to a medical thing, just like you were sharing, you go with gut. And so we did that, and it took several weeks because the doctors themselves couldn't believe what they were seeing. So it took about 4 different pathologists to confirm the diagnosis and several weeks to get that done. But the problem was I didn't get to implement my living benefits. And so then when we're in the room and I'm being told, like you have, I can't even remember what, tonsillar, blah, 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 B-cell, whatever, right? Lymphatic cancer, lymphoma. They didn't say cancer.
Right.
They don't say cancer because it's hard. Like, when they're coming in the room, I remember this doctor was at least 10 years younger than me, and he had that deer in the headlights look.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't come to say it. And my husband was in the room with me at that time. And so when the doctor said the thing, he goes, how do we fix this?
Right.
Because he didn't know that it was a cancer diagnosis. And it was really hard. I think it was one, aside from telling my mom, telling my own husband in the room, like,
yeah,
this
you
is
realize
cancer.
this is cancer, right?
Right.
What?
Yeah. So, I mean, you do what you can. And we ended up depleting our resources because our income was now, I'm not working. He's not working because he's taking me. Expenses are going up with the bills of the medicals that aren't covered. Who's covering our mortgage? Who's covering our insurance? Who's taking care of the school needs for the kids? I mean,
Who's taking care of the kids?
Who's taking care of the kids, right? Right? So important. I'm going to say, especially if somebody is a parent of a special need kid. I'm not, but can you imagine? That takes a special person to come in and be able to do that. So this is really essentially vital for people to know about, but yet nobody's hearing about it until now.
Yeah.
Right? So that we get to share, and I think every story is important to create changes in lives. But we had to go through our part. We had to deplete our resources. Unfortunately, the market had taken a dive 2 years prior to this diagnosis.
Yeah.
So like you got to deal with the Corona deal. So I got to deal with the 2008 deal.
Yes.
Just before. So life is going to happen. It is going to happen. The important thing is we get to make the plans that when it does happen, we don't have to miss a beat. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for us. So we had, our resources were cut in half, and then the rest was wiped out. And then eventually we had to sell our home, because where are you getting the resources, right? GoFundMe, right? And I'm going to tell you, working with other clients, especially men, sometimes that feels really demoralizing for people to do that. So you're already going through a condition that is so hard, and then to just feel like you haven't done enough in your life to sustain yourself. And not everybody feels that way, but a lot of people tell me that they do feel that way when that happens to them. Or it's this afterthought, that regret, that thought of regret, because I didn't do it. I should have done it sooner. And the shoulda, woulda, coulda, and we could go crazy with that. So the important lesson for me was, okay, this happened to me. I wanted to teach my kids, and I wanted to teach other families so they would never have to experience what I experienced and what my kids experienced and what my husband experienced.
Yeah.
And then I got started learning and teaching and sharing. And I really vowed that if I could turn one person's life around, it would make all the difference.
And that person was me.
And you're one of a few.
Yeah.
You know, just because life will happen.
I'm most important. So I don't. Yeah. No. Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because each person for me is like my family, is my extended family. And I don't want anybody to ever suffer the hurt or the pain or the struggle that our families went through. Because they do. And it's unnecessary. If it was something that we couldn't avoid, then I'd understand. But it is something that we can totally avoid. And all we get to do is just explore a little, just learn a little, acknowledge that there's something better out there, and just dip your toes in and then take those baby steps forward, because the answer is here. It's literally here. It's here. It's pretty much for everybody until it's not.
Right.
Right. And the not is you have this life event that happens. And so better to be in your situation
where you're healthy,
and you got it and you had it when you needed it most.
Right.
So it's better to have it and not need it than to not have it and need it.
Yeah.
Because that then affects everybody else. And that affects our whole economy.
Yeah. And how many months would you say? So you said you were going to start in January, but when did you get diagnosed?
I got diagnosed, the actual diagnosis came through the end of December. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So the timing of it. So if you're feeling like you should do something,
yeah,
acknowledge it. Go with those gut instincts. Really look into it and do it. I can't tell you how many times over and over again. It's that I knew I should have done it and I didn't.
That's like Greek tragedy level.
Yeah.
What you just described.
Yeah.
Because when did you find out?
When did I find out of the...
when did you learn about the living benefits and you were... when did you say, you know what, I'm going to save some money and do it? When was that?
October. So just 2 months.
You're hurting me.
I know. It hurt me and my family. So you're hurting all those that you love as well. You know, I'm going to say if it was just me, that would be one thing. But the ripple effect,
yeah,
it's painful. And you live with that literally every day. And I just don't want people to live in regret, shame, or blame for what they didn't know. They get to explore, they get to learn, and they get to try, you know, to make that change. And not just even try. I'm going to take that word out. They get to do it.
Yeah.
They get to make the difference.
Yeah.
Like you did.
Right. I think I'm rare. I'm a weirdo. Because I tell people about, you know, at least living benefits, because obviously there are other things too.
Yeah.
The tax-free
index account, but that's that icing on the, you know,
right.
To me, the living benefits is the essential, you know, that's kind of like the ice cream. Right?
Yeah. I tell people about it all the time.
Right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, it sounds great. Crickets.
Right.
Crickets, though. And it's like, you're young, you're healthy, you've never had any diagnosis. You need to do it right now. You need to do it 10 years ago. But, you know, okay, now. And
facing mortality is hard.
Yeah.
Facing mortality with a diagnosis is even harder.
Trust me. I know. But we got all these young people and you know, and
that's right.
And
well, the possibility is all here. And so people just get to take that opportunity just to really start exploring. And that's it. I mean, it's super simple.
Yeah. Well, why do you think all these young, healthy people hear about it and don't hear that it's great and they don't do it?
I don't know. When you're young, don't you feel invincible?
Yes. I hear that from a lot of young people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say maybe I'm a little bit of a unicorn because, well, I'm from Baltimore and it's a very dangerous city and I've lost half my uncles and aunts and some of their children aren't with us anymore. And actually, let's not even skirt around it. They were murdered or they, you know, died of AIDS or overdose. Right. So mortality has always been around me. I remember I was 17 and my aunt, she died of an aneurysm burst. And that really shook me. Yeah. It's just like, you could just get taken out at any time. Yeah. And my uncle, which was her husband, he had been murdered not too long ago. And so it's always been around me. So I've always been aware that, like, you don't know. We talk about these years, especially when you get diagnosed with cancer,
Yeah.
and people talk about like the survival rate and all this other stuff, like this could give you 5 more years or 10 or whatever, and they assume you have this long life to live, but the truth of the matter is you actually
just don't know.
You know, we're talking about potential years that you can never even have in the first place.
Yeah.
So I've always had that inside of my psyche.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, well, yeah. You know, let's do what we can now. I always felt like a sense of, you know, urgency, because we're all on borrowed time, and we don't know how much we have.
There's a couple of similarities. So, well, one similarity for sure is, you know, the loss of my brother with the tragedy when I was 21, and we had to bury him on his 27th birthday. You know, no mom or no family should ever go through things like that. Or hearing one of my friends say the eulogy of her 12-year-old son, where they sold everything, and the last thing they were going to sell was the house. And her son at 12 years old saying, "Mom, please don't, so that my baby brother can live in the house we grew up." To have that kind of ask from that child to a mother, where maybe with living benefits, that didn't even have to be in that child's concern. And it is just a part of life and reality that, you know, Jim Rohn, I like listening to.
I love him.
You know, I like listening to Jim Rohn. So Jim Rohn, there's 2 things for sure. You know, he's a great philosopher, but the reality is sensible stuff, common sense. We are born and we will exit this world.
Yeah.
And with that reality, you know, if we can come to grips with the simplicity of that is true, what can I do with that in between to take care of me my best and take care of my family my best without having these extra stressors of the world, which money tends to be, and turn it into something that becomes where you have a solution versus a perpetuating problem. Because it's not just when you get the cancer diagnosis, it carries on for years. Anybody that has lost money knows how long it takes to make it up, because also your mindset, there's that defeat that sets in, and then you got to conquer that and then get to the other side.
Yeah.
So once we know, like you said, we just get to explore and take action. So what did it feel like when you received the money?
The money.
And how you got it? The money.
The best part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I received a check in the mail, which is my favorite way to receive money. And I think it's like when you see the number, there's an excitement, you know, and I think that's the beautiful thing, because it's from cancer, but it's like, oh, I got this present, you know? And to me, you know, I'm a bit of a weirdo. Like I said, when I first realized that I got cancer, my first thought was like, I'm rich, you know, like they're paying me for this illness. That's what it felt like, you know, because it could have been, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to afford this? As opposed to, well, now I'm going to be able to do things that I actually wouldn't have been able to do before, you know? I could go to the grocery store and I don't have to look at the numbers. I can just get what I want. I can get the best things for me, you know. I can get the organic oranges. I can get the organic bananas. And so when I got the actual check, and like I said before, it's for $118,000 and some change, which was on my little vision board. That's already amazing. I already felt like, wow. And I think that it adds to the mysticism of my life, I feel, you know, because when you get cancer, you often think like, why did it happen to me? Why do I have to be the one experiencing this? And when I had that connection between the check that I wrote for myself the year before, and it happened to be so close to the check that I got in the mail, you begin to think of it completely differently. Like, this is a part of my chapter that I am supposed to be experiencing, that, you know, maybe these things are happening for me because it gave me the most amount of money I'd ever received in my whole life, you know? And it's like, that's a beautiful thing. And you get to see the beauty of the diagnosis, which is weird, but, you know, but that's the quirkiness of life. And so it gives you a sense of grounding. And that's what I felt, you know, when I got the numbers, because you get the number before you get the check.
Right.
Which is amazing. So for me, as we said before, I dipped into the 2 policies, and I was stage 2 at the time, but that put me at a level.
Yeah.
Level 3. Right?
Level 3.
Which just is about how are they describing the levels? Like, what does it mean basically?
So it depends on your diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so those levels are paid out to you based on your doctor's diagnosis. So, you know, there's level 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like there's the levels of diagnosis. So there's different percentages in each one. So, you know, with critical illness, it could be up to 75% of a death benefit. So what's really cool about this is you had a term policy. There's no cash value in a term policy.
What?
Yeah, there's no term. It's just straight up pure insurance. But it's not just pure death insurance. Like we said, it's living benefits insurance. And so what's really cool about that is usually if you had no cash value, you had no money. So because of the death benefit acceleration, it's up to 75% of the critical illness and up to 90% of the terminal illness. Those are huge numbers, especially if you're talking about somebody that has $1 million policy. So it works for the client, and they get to set up those accounts with what works for them financially and their numbers. And that's also the cool thing, because this isn't just for the uber rich. This is for the middle income American, the me and the you, that are here doing our day to day, and we're working hard in our lives, and we're trying to protect our financial households, our families, ourselves, right? Because if it was just a death policy, why would single people need it if they don't have any beneficiaries to give to?
Right.
I mean, maybe they have a nonprofit or something, but in reality, with living benefits, now we're talking about benefiting you, benefiting other people. It's benefiting everybody. And it's really, especially if you're solo, it's super important. Or if you're a business owner, man, you're not just protecting you. You are protecting your family, your work family, and you. So, you know, with permanent plans, it does have that cash value build up. But in the first few years, because this happened fast. Yeah, right? Within a year, you're not having much cash value build up. So if your plan is paying you on the cash value build up and you're at 5,000 versus 75% of 100,000, that's a pretty big number, right? So it's understanding these details. I always say the divine is in the details because it provides enlightenment for what you get.
Yeah.
So I love that. So, because nobody wants to go searching for devil in details. Go look for the divine differences that help support you with what you need. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And we figured out your numbers based on your income, what your needs that needed to be met so that you could have the right amount of money for you when you needed it most.
Yeah. So
the other one I don't remember. I know 100. Yeah, you with me they were both 100,000.
It was actually 100,000 was for 155.
Oh, okay.
It was 155
on the tax-free.
On the tax-free retirement,
because we were building it to grow.
And then the other one
term.
Is that what it was? Yeah. So the other
It's okay.
That one was 125,000.
Okay.
And because I was so healthy,
yes, you got the best rating.
Yes, so I only had to pay $100 a month for the index-free retirement plan,
the one
and
that
then
you're building.
I only had to pay $10 for the term.
Yep.
So you know, I think the thing that scares a lot of young people too is that their income is so like fluctuating that they're worried that they're not going to be able to afford life insurance or something like that.
Right.
And once they realize that it's like you could get a policy for $10, you know, or you could get a policy for
that's a coffee someplace.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, or even $100. It's like you can figure out a way to pay $100 a month. If you're buying the Jordan 1s or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like it's priorities. True. Get your priorities. Just set aside $25 a week into an account and then have it come out of there.
Well, and I mean, I think about this. I think about Coachella, right? kids go for a week over there.
Right.
You know, you're going out to the desert to concerts for a week. If you took that same money year over year, you could be a millionaire by the time you're 65. My one stance is every person in America at this point should be millionaires by the time they're 65. That's at the latest. Now, if we learned about these, but you got to learn about this early on. And this is what wealthy people do to create that generational wealth. They get that one up. Their kids know. They know when they're little because their parents set it up ahead of time immediately. So we can do the same thing. Who said that we can't? I always say it's no secret to be wealthy. The only person that makes it secret is you if you don't go find out about it. So it's really easy to just go find out and ask somebody that is, Google a safe money expert.
Yeah.
Look up and see plans about living benefits plans and who provides them. I mean, start to be curious like a kid. Kids always win out, man, because they always find out. They're curious. And what do? They're persistent and resilient. They keep on looking. And I'm going to say that's what happened to me. I think I felt like after cancer, I was like, I got to figure this out. I got to get this down because if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. Not for me, not for my kids. And I'm going to say my generation, some people think it's too late, but that's not true either. You get to find out where you are, how you get to transition into receiving wealth and then growing. And when you start to open that door, all sorts of other beautiful things start to happen in income because you're doing the right thing. And just like you say, it's this kind of energy. Money is energy.
Yes.
It's a currency. So are you connected to it? I always like to say, I get to be connected to the currency of love. And I don't know about you. Doesn't it feel like love when you have somebody providing for you? And when you know that money's in your account, it's providing for you.
Yeah. And you have a higher capacity for love because when you don't have, I always describe money as air because I've been extremely poor. I mean, like extremely poor, where you're like, do I feed my stomach or do I feed the gas tank? And well, I've been poorer than that because I didn't even have a car.
Right.
But, not having money is not having air because you're always, okay, you get a few dollars and you can breathe a little and then you don't have it anymore and you're like, and I say that because air is the most vital thing to our life. Yeah. And without money, we can't get the most vital things for our life, like food. Yeah. And water, the things that keep us alive. So it's a resource. Yeah, if you don't have it, you're constantly taking a little bit in, and taking a little bit in, and then when you finally have enough to sustain your needs, you can just breathe.
Perfectly said.
While I have you here in front of me, I just want to express. I mean, it's amazing to have met you. I think too that it's almost miraculous because you think of how many people you meet in the world. Yeah. And it amounts to nothing, even if the connection is great, even if the connection is beautiful. Yeah. And I feel like it was such a lucky chance that I even met my best friend the way that I did and that she was able to say, hey, come along to this, money event because you're so great at finances and you've been helping me. Yeah. And I happened to say yes. There was nothing else going on that was more important. And, well, what I would have thought was more important, because there's nothing more important than this kind of information. Mm. And, I happened to be a freelancer, so I was free to move about and control my time. Yep. And that, we went there to the event, the Money 101, and you happened to be, the host of this thing. There were so many events that had to happen in my life. First of all, I'm not even from California. You know what I mean? Right. There were so many decisions that had to be made, so many pieces that had to move in perfect unison for us to meet that day. Yeah. And I was hypnotized by you when I first saw you. I said, that's the one? That's Rita, the one that you met? We love her. Aww. And, it was just such a connection. It was from the beginning. I just thought you were so graceful, so beautiful. You had your little dresses on. I'm like, who is this? I need to be friends with her. And everything that you said, and Andre, because y'all, you were there together.
Take the team.
It just made sense to me because I'd gone to events before. Like I had explained before, I loved learning about finances, but it was like they were speaking Egyptian or so. It's
language.
Like, they don't exactly explain it to you like they're teaching.
Right.
They're explaining as though you already understand, and this is we're just going to add on top to what you already know. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know anything. That's why I'm here. But when I came to your class, you had the diagrams and you were drawing, and it made it so simple. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking around at everybody else like, is no one hearing this? Is no one hearing how amazing this idea is? It just was a no-brainer for me, because I think of the things that when I tell other people about it, that made it click for me, because you talk about how you're like you work like with the stock market, but not in the stock market. And when you show the diagram of like, when they make money, we make money, but when they lose money, we stay neutral. And I'm like,
right?
That was like the simplest way to describe this, and I think there was, when we were talking about like compound interest, and that was explained so simply.
Yep.
And
it gets to be simple.
It got it, yeah, which is amazing. And I think another thing that was big for me was, I think it was just like, we were talking about the tax-free stuff, and that had never really been explained to me at all. Right. I'm like,
yeah. I had to hear that a couple times, but it's good, right?
Yeah.
You get the practice. You get to hear it over and over again, because sometimes when there's something new, it takes us a bit, and we get to, I'm going to say, hold that grace and space for ourselves, in that we're learning. No one was born running. No one was born knowing math, right? We all had to learn it. We had to learn our ABCs. So, we think that we should know what we should have learned from kindergarten to college in an hour session. That's just not possible. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? It took time for me to learn it. It takes time for you to learn it. So we get to hold space for each other.
Right.
And I'm so grateful that, you inspired me by showing up, because having young people show up and having interest in themselves enough to invest in themselves to move forward inspires also other adults and other people like me.
Because I was definitely the youngest one there.
Yeah, you were definitely the youngest one there.
I definitely was. I'm looking around like, okay.
That's great.
But I think that's what was so fantastic about you and Andre, though, is because I did learn in an hour session, and I wasn't even there for the full hour, because I was
right, you were
fashionably late.
That's right.
But what I love more is that every time we talked, you made me feel so smart. And that's the thing about, that's the difference with finances, is because, like I said, they're talking over your head.
It happens to
and
me.
It feels like, and it feels like a purposeful thing. Like, I know so much about finances and you don't, and I want to feel superior to you. So I'm going to be using all of these grand words like, do you have a Roth IRA, or, the regular IRA, or you said something about the IRS? That's not what I'm hearing. What's going on? And so you made it not only simple, but it was like, you have this warm personality already, Mama Rita. And, you brought me out to lunch, and that made me feel very welcome, very relaxed. And I was telling you what I know about finances, and that's what scares people, especially young people, because they have so much ego, they have so much pride, but at the same time they're screaming inside like, somebody please help me, somebody please help me. But I don't know how to ask, and I don't want to feel stupid, because I know I'm making mistakes, and I know I'm in debt and all of this other stuff, and you're going to judge me. And I never felt that way.
Great.
You were like, good, smart, okay, yeah. And I don't know if you were just BSing me, but I felt so, I came out of there like, listen, y'all, I have a savings account, and that's smart, and that's like the difference too. is because you made the process of learning finances feel easy, feel safe. And people want to feel safe. They'll run away from everything that makes them feel afraid and feel threatened. And that's usually what the financial game is. But that just keeps you perpetuating whatever cycle you're going to have. If you keep doing what you do, you're going to be where you are.
That's right.
Whether it's, right now or 10 years from now, 50 years
That's
from
right.
now. And so that's what I
Great
love
point.
about you.
I love you.
Yeah.
I gotta hug you.
Of course. Oh my God. See, we did get further apart.
How great are living benefits?
Fantastic. They're not great. They're beyond the scale.
Yeah.
First of all, because it sounds made up, but it's not. It's like you get the check and you're like, they weren't lying. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
And because how it was first described, which is, when you have life insurance, usually you get paid when you die.
Right.
But we have these living benefits, you get paid if you almost die. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because I want to get paid if something happens to me.
Yep.
And like you were saying, most people, especially in the United States, they're going to have something. It's an inevitability.
Yeah.
So why not get paid for an inevitability? It just seems so
Simple.
plain, so simple. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, well, if it's inevitable for me to get a heart attack or a stroke, upset stomach, diarrhea, then I might as well get this money that's going to help me and pay me out in that instance. And the fact that this thing exists is just miraculous. And it feels like a secret.
Yeah.
Because in some way it is a secret because nobody knows about it.
Right.
Like, nobody. It's kind of crazy. And I try to tell as many people as possible because I'm like, you need to have it. You need to have it.
Yes.
And even when you tell them about how miraculous it is and they see that I, got the money and everything, they still don't want to have it. But that's okay because not every gift is for everybody. They won't always get it. We just preach to the ones who will understand and who will be moved by this because it is life-changing. Because you get the money and then you get to breathe a little bit. You get to take care of yourself. You thought I was joking, but those organic vegetables, that helps you.
Feel better.
Yeah, you're going through chemo, you're going through whatever treatment you have, you want to be able,
minimize what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to be there.
Exactly. Or it's
You
like,
get to choose that.
if you want to do a little yoga class, or if you want to get that Netflix subscription and the Hulu, you don't have to choose. Still be responsible with your money,
Yes.
and still continue to invest in yourself. But if you have that lump sum of money, then maybe you can invest in yourself. You could take time to write the book. I wrote,
right.
I wasn't able to work, but I wrote 3 books,
Yes,
because I had the time to do it. And, that gave me a little bit of, money
Some
too.
capital.
Or if you want to invest in something,
Right.
real estate investing, it depends on, how much money you
got.
got out of your deal.
Right.
But this could be the foundation for your
Or pay
financial
off
future.
that home if you have a home mortgage.
Exactly.
Never worry about that again.
Right, like I paid off my car loan and everything,
Right.
and definitely paid off debt. Huh. Like that. This could be the financial stepping stone that you need to never be broke again.
Mm-hmm.
And what was even more amazing, tragic but amazing, is I had 2 cancer diagnoses back to back.
Yeah.
And because they were back to back, I could dip into my policy again. And so I received an additional $20,000 on top
Right.
of what I got before. And that helped me sustain myself and move into my new apartment. Y'all, it's so cute. But that would have never been able to
Right.
happen if I didn't have that resource to pick, to
Absolutely.
dip into.
Yeah, because you have what you need and more, and you get to choose
Yeah.
where that goes. Whereas you receive the money and you're being told you can only use it for this
Right.
or that. You have that freedom of choice, and that freedom helps you breathe.
Yeah.
And even celebrate the fact that, wow, I made the best decision ever.
Yeah.
I took care of me, and now my plans are taking care of me, right? You took the time to put those plans in place.
Right.
And I call them purposely leveraged actions now. So that now piece is the piece that most people get to take action on, but sometimes they wait. Portia, so what advice would you give to somebody young or old about these types of plans and benefits?
Right. Well, I can't speak for the old people. That's your dominion. But
That's true. That's all these gray hairs, all that wisdom.
beautiful,
Right?
beautiful. But no, I mean, well, I'll start with the young.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the fence, just do it. Because even if maybe something happens financially or you're just not sure, or you're still young. So you will be able to make changes,
Right.
in your life.
And there's no risk of loss with this.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
really isn't.
There's no risk anyways. But if you're worried about risk, for instance, and something happens with your finances where you can't continue to pay or something like that, first of all, I always say talk to your agent, whoever got you involved, and
Right.
see what you can do.
Absolutely.
That's the great part about this too, is that you're always now a resource for me to tap into. So I would say that first.
Mm-hmm.
But second, if you're young, you're already ahead of the game, because a lot of people are finding out about this in their 50s and 60s, but you're young, you can always come back, you
Right.
got a
Absolutely.
second, third win or whatever. So I say just do it.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, you already set yourself up, which is
For
fantastic.
success.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to speak to the wise, better vintage group,
Yes.
the seasoned group. What I hear a lot is people say, I wish I would have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I hear that pretty much every week, sometimes every day for a period of time. So it doesn't have to be that way. And the problem, I think, for people that are more seasoned, when you say that, it's almost as if we're making an excuse that we should have done it in the past and we're not doing it now.
Yeah, we're not gonna start
you
now.
get to do it. You get to start now, right? There is, if you want shade right now,
You have to plant the tree.
you should have planted the tree 20 years ago. But if you want to get shade as soon as possible, you better plant the seed for the tree to grow right now.
Yeah.
So it's go do it. Go get it done now. Go find out about it. Go explore and see what's possible for you. When you get somebody who's really great explaining simply, and I think, people underestimate how much they really know. Because, like you mentioned, we've been told how much we don't know.
Right.
And the reality is we know more than we think. I tell people when they say they should have learned about money in school, and I said, well, you learned some basics. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And it starts there, and numbers do not lie to you. Numbers always will tell you where you're going. So, and they don't judge, it's just logic. Now, some people feel very emotional about these pieces. And I'm going to say, we hear that there's no emotion with money. But there is a whole ton. There is that out there in the world. And I'm just going to say there's a whole ton of emotions, and that's okay. If you find the right person to work with, they will be aligned with you, because that will be aligned with your value system. And for me, that value system, the heart of it, if you look at it as if it was a compass, the heart of it, or the dial piece, is love. And if we come to that where, yes, we are human, there are going to be emotions around these decisions. Do I have the right consultant or person to help me work through this, whether I'm feeling shame, blame, or not worthy enough?
Yeah.
Is this person going to be patient enough to teach me and show me the way? I've had my mentors, some amazing mentors, express. It's kind of like I've gone through the landmine field and gotten to the other side. Now I come back to take you through so that you do not have to take any hits.
This is very Harriet Tubman. And I love it. Wow.
Right? And so I got to create that pathway so that you do not have to have fear or risk of taking a hit.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, is that young or old, no one wants to feel foolish, because
100%.
what you're presenting is so amazing. It sounds way too good to be true, that if they're wrong about it, they will feel really foolish and full of shame. Like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have put my money into this. And nobody wants to feel that way. And I think that's why testimonials like this are so important.
Yes.
Because we show like, no, it's real.
It is
you
real.
know, and the money has
And you
benefited
can
people.
learn, and you get to learn in your time, and you get to hone in on all these emotions that you're feeling from whatever past you experienced, because it's totally valid, and that you get to move forward step by step. I like to tell my clients, I'm going to work with you. That means alongside you. I'm not here to push you, because that's a lot of work. I'm not here to pull you, because that's a lot of work. And that's exhausting for both of us, right? So we get to walk together through this journey and take that step by step so that you can make the smartest decisions with ease of what's right for you.
Yeah.
So you could achieve your goals. And that's the most important thing. They've got to have more love and compassion for you than you have for yourself, but you almost got to match that person. And that's how you find that right aligned match. And that creates abundance for both people. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
It gets to be a win-win and win for companies providing it,
Yeah.
because they're providing the resources, for the client that receives the resources, and the agent or consultant that is providing that value in the world, getting reimbursed for that value that they are giving to you and supporting the companies that they support. And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And it's all possible. And I'm going to say, I tell people this all the time. People say it's too good to be true every day. So for the past 10, 12 years, I've been living the too good to be true with my clients. And I love living in that world.
Yeah. And I think I do have some advice for the seasoned.
Okay. Take it. Bring it.
Right. Firstly,
I'll receive it.
like you were saying, I wanted to piggyback off of the shade, and the tree. Like, the thing is, it's never too late. Like, the tree doesn't care when it was sprouted. It just knows that it needs to grow.
Wisdom.
Wasn't that good? And then also, the thing is, if you've made it to this point in your life where, first of all, you have the resources to even consider something like this, you should go for it. And then also, if you've managed to maintain a very healthy lifestyle, and the policy won't be at an amount that will be too expensive for you, you should go for it.
Right.
Because this is guaranteed money. It's a no-brainer for me. And then also, you're setting up something for your beneficiaries when you do eventually leave this planet. So I say, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not set yourself up, set up your descendants as well, your spouse, the dog, whoever you want to send the money to.
Because that money will be coming in one form or another.
Right. And like we keep reiterating, if you are in your older years, it's a guarantee something is going to happen. So you might as well have that backup plan for yourself.
Agreed.
You don't want to be in those years where everything's aching and beyond chemo, and now have to worry about money.
Oof, and that hits home for sure, because I remember very vividly being just like you, no hair. Now I have the gray hair, which great. But I remember being sick and having a basin next to me, and I was the financial person in my household, and I was having to do the numbers, as sick as I was, and figure out how to get money coming in, during that time period. Yes, my husband was going to work, but can you imagine going and you're having to go to work and leave your wife at home or your loved one at home sick? You're trying to focus on your work. That's really hard. And that person is trying to figure out how they can contribute. And it just puts this undue stress on not just the person that's sick. That's why I call it financial cancer, because it's this cancer that's it it has an effect on everyone in the family and your community. Because for me, it was neighbors that were coming to help, parents from schools that were coming to help, like this army of people. So it affects many, many lives. We reach out to many more people than we realize in this world. Yeah. We're important. Each one of us is important and affects everyone's lives. You may not realize it, but we do. So why not do right by you so you can do right by them?
Right. I agree. Well said. I, hit you up. Like, hey, girl, I got cancer. Yeah. Can you believe it? Mm-hmm. I need you. We can't believe it, but I'm here for you. We talked about these policies and everything. How fast can we get it started? Because I'm going to need that Luciano pretty quick. Right. And yeah, I would say that we started the claim process, the processing of everything in the beginning of December, maybe end of November. Yeah, because we just needed that doctor's statement, your doctor's statement, right? Yes. It was your doctor that had to give us the information so that we could process it with the company. Right. So they needed to know the diagnosis and what that was specifically. And then once they had that, then they had to give me the estimates so that I could look over it. Everything was great. And then you got to choose, right? Oh, yes, exactly. I got to choose. Like I could take a percentage of it, or if I could take all of it. And I said, give me my money. It's my money and I want it now. And so then I actually got the check in January, which was fantastic because that was when I started chemo. And then 2 months later, the whole world just shut down. So it was immaculate timing. Yes. And yeah, what was so amazing too was how little I had to pay for my policies. Right. But I think that's what felt like alchemy to me. I was like, is this how the rich people feel? Mm-hmm. Because they do these investments and it's a small portion for you to get this big payout. And that's what it felt like. I felt like an investor. You know what I mean? And you were. Right. You were investing in you. Right. Because and that's how investors feel. Because I set up the policies when I was extremely healthy. There was just I had no surgeries or anything, right? And so I was the elite status, right? So I'm already feeling fancy. They're calling it elite, And so I only had to pay for both of those policies $110 a month, right? And one of them being the $10 a month, right? Right. The one that I got that I chose to use first. That was only $10 a month, and then I get a check for $118,000. What? Did I just steal from these people? Right. Is somebody coming after me? Like, how amazing. Right. That is just, that's so exciting. I tell you, I'm like, I wish I bought more policies. Right. What? And, that's the thing too. When I tell people about this, I'm like, you don't just have to get one policy, or you don't have to, get it for the amount that I did. Right. Do what you can. Do what you can. But listen, when you win, you have to tap into this policy. You want to make sure you got as much money. And you definitely want to do it when you're healthy. I tell people, when you're healthy. It's kind of like, right now interest rates are going up on houses and people want to lock in their rates. Well, locking in your rates, you do that when you're young and healthy, and plans like these are bought not with just money. They're first bought with your health. Because if you're not healthy, you're out of luck. Yeah. When you're young, woo! We get the deal. The young people get the deals in this, which is pretty amazing. And as you move on, again, anything vintage, there's a little bit of a bigger price to pay. But the reality is when you are looking at the trade-off of what you're getting for what you're putting in, if it makes sense, it makes sense. It makes dollars. It makes, it doesn't make, right. It makes dollars, not cents. So it's easy to see. It becomes very clear as you go through the process and you take the steps and you take the time, so that this way you can use your money in the wisest way to build your wealth and keep your health. I think you know how much you mean to me. No, you can say it.
I hope I can say it, because I know I get choked up, and because it just means the world to me that I've been able to be here for you. I think more importantly, I want to say thank you, because you feel like a daughter to me. And I want the world for you. And when you show up wise, proud, confident, with everything that you're, and gorgeous, not beautiful, gorgeous. That inspires me. And I want to thank you for inspiring me every day since the day that I met you. I'm just so thankful we got put together to make a difference in each other's lives and the lives of many other people. So I just love you so much.
I love you too. And of course, I feel lucky. I feel extremely lucky to have not just, the person who helped me with this financially, but to have another warm, motherly figure, sisterly figure.
It's okay, you can say motherly. It's all good.
But you are a part of my soul tribe, and I just happen to stumble upon you, and like, how amazing, how lucky is that? Right. I just feel very lucky, and I get to keep you in my life.
Yes.
And that's just more than I could have possibly
looking more forward to the journey of joy with you, my friend. I love you.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.